Picked up again by McDavid, straight up the middle, McDavid in, scores! What a goal! Tony Subban scores! Crosby scores! Sidney Crosby, the golden goal! He did it! The greatest goal scorer in National Hockey League history is Wayne Gretzky! And Hemsky's loose, Hemsky, he scores! Can you believe what we just saw? In comes Tavares, walks in, Reed scores! Tavares again! Canada's back in it! 3, 2, 1! Series over!
Hello, and welcome back to episode number 5 of the One Timers podcast with Cam and Jules. How was your week?
My week was good, Cam. The Flyers didn't play because they all have COVID. So, nothing to complain about this week. But if we're going to get into it, I want to complain about the NHL right now. The Flyers are playing tonight, and they don't have 4 of their top 6 forwards. They're missing their fourth-line center and one of their top 6 D. I don't really understand the NHL's protocols and their rules. Like, some teams don't play, and then a team like them, they're going to be missing half their roster and they all of a sudden have to play a game. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think, I was kind of looking to dive into this. It's been, for listeners, I think it's been about 2 weeks since our last episode. And with COVID, we've seen a lot of cancellations in that time. And one of the things for me is what's the line between postponing a game because certain guys aren't able to play? Like, you're cut off because in a game like this, right, where you're missing, as you said, 6 very key impactful people and four in your top 6, even if your team's allowed to play, you're at a severe disadvantage. In this shortened schedule, every point matters. So I'm not sure what my actual, because at the same time, you can't continue to cancel games if you want to get them all in. So it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I think in this circumstance, you probably don't want to play the game with that many guys out, but you might have to. I don't know.
Yeah. See, for me, it's like, first of all, just a cool little stat about the game. This will be the Flyers' first regular season game without one of Jake Voracek or Claude Giroux in the lineup since 2009. It's been almost 12 seasons since both of them have missed a game for the Flyers. And they'll both be out tonight. There's no Giroux, no Voracek, no Travis Konechny, no Oscar Lindblom, no Scott Laughton. These are important, impactful guys. If you go to Toronto and you say, okay, we're going to take, if they're top 6, okay, let's just say we're going to take, I'm not going to pick, obviously, like their best players. But let's say we're going to take Marner and Tavares out. And then we'll take, maybe one of their Mikheyev and stuff. Like, they're going to be sitting there and be like, okay, well, we're missing some of our important guys. Like, we don't want to play the game. I think the NHL is not going to get to finish all of its games. I think that's pretty much locked in at this point. There's too many cases, too many things going on. And I think it's going to come down to points percentage. So if I'm a team, why do I want to play a game where I know my points percentage is going to go down because I'm probably going to lose? I don't have my team. I don't want to go out there with an AHL roster and ruin my points percentage. But at the same time, you're right. They have to play. Like, you can't just have teams not playing forever. And the Flyers are supposed to play the Lake Tahoe game on Sunday against Boston. So I think the NHL really wants them to get a game in beforehand. But I just don't see how you can be successful like this. And I don't think it's really fair to a team. But at the same time, I haven't actually watched enough of the other rosters and like how many guys are missing for a team to play. This just seems like a lot to me. And I have another question for you. I was gonna ask you later, but I might as well ask it now. Do you think the NHL has to finish the season or do playoffs in a bubble? Do you think that they're gonna end up with the teams in the bubble, or do you think that they're gonna find a way to do travel and make it work?
The way I've been thinking about it, I think we actually had this conversation with someone the other day. I see playoffs happening normal, but I see a Final Four bubble happening somewhere in the States, because it can't happen in Canada, because if it stays the same right now, the Americans aren't coming into Canada. So I see it happening. The winner of the Canadian division goes down to a bubble somewhere in the States, which is, again, lots of added risk. And you have the Pacific, Central, East, and Canadian winners all in the same bubble, and you play it out there. That's the only way I see it happening. I think they can get it done outside of that, like throughout the divisional games. But to go back, yeah, so that's the answer to that question. But to go back to the points percentage and not finishing the season, we kind of touched on this last or 2 weeks ago, but it doesn't really make sense to me how you can do that, because we talk about Ottawa games remaining, or then in other divisions we have, Buffalo games remaining or Detroit games remaining. Like there's pretty much one team in every division that you're going to get points in. You really have to get points against. So, and when you're playing teams that much, and you already look at it, like Arizona and St. Louis, they played a best of 7. They played each other 7 times in a row, right? Arizona ended up winning in game 7. But if you look at the standings before, Arizona's kind of at the bottom. Like we both put them near the bottom of our rankings. So if St. Louis walked over them, right? So say if Arizona was in the basement of the league and they walked over them all 7 games, but now someone on the outside, Minnesota or San Jose, only plays Arizona 4 times, right? Compared to, and then say if it's Minnesota and San Jose tied, right? Going into the playoffs, one team's played them 8 times, one team's played them 4 times, and you go points percentage now. So that's the points percentage thing. I understand it might have to happen, but I'd love to see it avoided, because just so much error involved in that.
Oh, I'm with you. Like it's unfair. It genuinely is unfair. Like like you said, the perfect example is a Canadian division. If I'm Edmonton and I'm grinding for a playoff spot, and let's say I've only played 2 games against Ottawa, and if I get inched out by 0.2% in points percentage by Vancouver, but Vancouver played Ottawa 7 times, I'm gonna be upset, and rightfully so. They should be upset. I just think the NHL has to look at that and be like, not my problem. Luck of the draw, whatever, because that's what it comes down to. Like, you can't just say, okay, Ottawa, you have to play all 56 games because everybody wants to play you because you're fucking bad. You know what I mean?
I think the only alternative that I like from it, and I'm not going to say I said I like it, but I don't really like it, is taking 56 and shortening it now. So maybe to 48 now, and say we're not going to get the games in. So if you're scheduled to be done with Ottawa like in 2 weeks' time, so you've already played them a bunch, then those 2 games are done. Like you're not going to get to play them 8 or 9 times. You're going to cap it at 7. So then I think you can get every game in. Even if it was a 40 game season, you play every team, or 42 game season, you play every team 6 times or 7 times, then at least it evens it out. And I think you can get it done. But if you have one team playing them 10 times and the other team playing them 4 times, that's so much scrutiny in that.
Yeah. And see, that would work in every division except for that West now, because St. Louis and Arizona have played their games. So now it's like everybody has to play their games. I was going to go back to the other thing you talked about, the playoffs. I am curious to see what the NHL does, if they get creative or not, because I consider a potential each playoff division will have its own little bubble, and then at the end they all go to one of the bubbles to play. I also considered the idea, do they change the road trips rather than 2-2, 1-1-1? Maybe they'll go back to the 4 and then 3. So just you only have to do the 2 trips. You go play 4 at the home teams and then the last 3 at the other teams. And if you're the home team, you got to win 3 of the ones at home at least. Right? I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah. I think the divisional bubbles is tough. I mean, they're already talking about how they're losing money, and that costs a whole lot of money. So I don't see the NHL forking up the money for 4 bubbles over the course of a couple months. Maybe a different scheduling thing with 4-3. I think they'd be more apt to go 2-3-2, where it's only a single, or like 2 travels max. But I don't know. I mean, we've been saying this from the start. It's different. Like no matter what we do, it's going to be very different, and we're just going to have to. It's the same for everyone. You're going to have to live with it. Perfect world, I'd love to see it all get figured out, but I'm not sure. I think the only thing I'm really confident on at the moment is if they're going to get it done, the finals will have to be in a bubble, because you can't have, unless the Canadian division's getting a bye to the cup final, because you can't have the crossover in the semis, right? And another thing I was going to touch on, because I've been trying to search it up, haven't found anything yet. Do you know if they've decided a conference matchup yet? Conference final matchup?
Yeah, so what they're doing is a seeding based on points percentage. So essentially, it doesn't matter, like it's not going to be like a bracket where one team's going to go up and face the other or anything like that. It's whoever wins each division, the highest point percentage will play the lowest point percentage, and then the other two in the middle. So if Toronto runs away with the Canadian division, and let's say St. Louis places third in the West but battles their way out of that, then Toronto would end up playing St. Louis, or and the other teams would fill in. That's the way they're going to do it. I think it works the best, because I think generally, and you look at the bracket, but at the same time, I do look at it and say, well, if a team's in a weaker division, they're just getting more and more of a advantage. But at the same time, like, what are they supposed to do, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that could bring up some issues. Maybe not issues, but think about playing a series. Let's pick a team. Not that I think they're going to get out of the Pacific, but like a San Jose, right? California team, and let's say it's Toronto. That's a 3-hour time difference between them. So that travel, and you're going completely across country for the series, is playing home and homes. I think that'd be interesting. It's going to be that way for one team, because you have 3 divisions with teams on the East Coast compared to the West Coast. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, I guess. It's going to be interesting no matter which way they figure it out. But as like we said at the start, I just hope we get the games in and we get to watch playoffs. I think, we'd hate to see the season get shut down anytime soon after everything we've been through.
Yeah. And speaking of interesting, Montreal Canadiens legend Alex Galchenyuk was moved twice this week. I don't know if anybody knows. He was signed a 1-year contract in Ottawa. He was traded in a package with Cedric Paquette for Ryan Dzingel to the Carolina Hurricanes, who then subsequently, I think they put him on waivers and then traded him to Toronto after he cleared waivers. Toronto just looking to add some depth in their taxi squad or their AHL. I want to know from a Montreal fan how a guy who scored 30 goals in his second year in the league, I think, how he's fallen so far. Is he KHL bound after this year, or do you think he's going to try and stick around? Do you think somebody will give him a shot? What do you think?
So in Montreal at the start, like you said, he scored 30 goals. I liked him. It kind of went downhill, but he was exciting, and he never was really that much of a disappointment for the first little while. And then he plateaued, and you understood what his career was, and that's just as good as he was going to be. And since then, he's gotten worse and worse. But you look at a guy now that, how is he still around? Like, normally, I'm not trying to stereotype all the Russian players, but he's been on 7 teams in 32 months, right? That's huge. Like, so for a guy like that and I saw something funny where it was, he leaves Montreal and it's like, okay, this is time for him to change. And then he leaves Arizona and it's like, oh, now it's a new Galchenyuk, and then a new one and a new one. So it's pretty clear that we're not going to see him pop back into his old self. He's just not going to turn around. So does he want to be a suitcase around I'm surprised he's still here. I thought he would have went back probably after Minnesota. But I don't know. At the same time, it's a low cap hit. I kind of liked him in Ottawa. You're a team that sucks. At least he provides a little bit of offensive opportunity sometimes, maybe, and he's a guy that you can take out of the lineup. When you put him in the lineup, you know that he's just going to give you what he just that mediocre play, I guess. it's just a weird thing. The only upside for Montreal is that traded him 1-for-1 for Domi, then flipped that over and got Anderson out of it, who looks fantastic. So end of the day, Habs fan, he gave us 6 years, great job. Rest of his time hasn't been too good, but we got Anderson eventually out of the deal, so I love it.
Hilarious. My only thing on Galchenyuk is he had that third overall status that was hanging above him the whole time. And we discussed this before the show. That might have been one of the worst draft classes in the last 20 years. Like, that was the year of Yakupov, and Galchenyuk goes, like, it's just not a strong year in the draft. And I think that was over his head. And he had that 30-goal season, but he was a career 40, 50-point guy for the first couple of years before there was that big drop-off. But for me, he always struck me as a guy who he wasn't quite good enough to be a top 6, and he could never play a bottom 6 role. And that's kind of where I had him in. So it's like, if he was in the AHL, great AHL player, would be an awesome top 6 there, but he can't fit in the bottom 6. His game, his style, and he never transitioned over to learning how to play that when he fell out of top 6 roles in the NHL. So my big thing with him is that when he went to Ottawa, I was like, this is either a career revival moment or this is the end of the road. And him not finding a place on Ottawa, they're the worst team in the league. I understand, yeah, they want to infuse some youth into the lineup. He's not in the long-term plan. He fell out of coach's favor, whatever. But him getting traded is just a part of moving some salary out and then waived and then traded again. This feels like the end for me. This feels like he's going to be an option in Toronto because they have Jimmy Vesey, who they kind of signed on a prove me deal, and he's not living up to it, to try and push him or push some guys in the lineup to work a bit harder. Like, oh, we got this guy. But at the same time, this feels like the final step for him. I don't see him getting in very many games if he finds a way from injuries to get in the lineup. He has to make the most of it, has to find a way somehow, because this is the end of the line for Alex Galchenyuk. He's going to have to go overseas. It's a struggle for me because obviously he's going to still want to play. But if you played in the NHL since the time you were 18 or 19, and now you're 25, 26, it's a hard thing to go and sit in the AHL and say, oh, I'm going to work my way back in there. I feel like he will sit there in the offseason and say, all right, it's my time to go overseas. And he'll go. I wanted to talk also about the crazy McDavid leaving practice and everybody going wild. So anybody who doesn't know this, McDavid, 18 minutes into practice the other day, has a discussion with Coach Dave Tippett and promptly leaves the ice. And then followed by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Darnell Nurse. And that's when the hockey world went crazy and was like, McDavid asked for a trade. McDavid's gone. What we trading McDavid for? And
yeah, can we shut that down?
Yeah, McDavid's not getting traded. He has 30 points right now. We can all understand that. But the thing for me is that how worried Edmonton fans are about McDavid leaving?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no chance he leaves within. I'm not going to guarantee that he stays his whole contract just because you never know what happens down the road. But in the foreseeable future, there is no chance. Anyone can get traded. I understand that, but he's not going anywhere. And then we talked about this after it happened because, like we said, the whole hockey world's blowing up about this. How him and then Nurse and Nuge leave the ice, and we're like, did they just all quit? Like, did they just say screw this? Like, we're taking a personal day. What happened? But then you bring up time on ice in the game before, where they were all you said the numbers all well over into the 22, 23 minute.
Yeah.
Right.
I think McDavid was over 25 the night before. So
yeah. So all playing tons of minutes. That had to be what the conversation was. Like, just take the day. We're gonna just, a little bit of a busy part of the season or whatever, or just you're carrying our team right now. Like, you want to go get work in the trainer's room, you want to just kind of take a day. You just skate it for 20 minutes, have a nice relaxing day before we go into playing the next couple nights. have it, right? And
Buddy,
then,
I need McDavid working on his skills in practice. All right. He needs to be doing every single skill drill. He can't miss a day.
well, and the other thing is and Nuge is an A, right? Nuge has an A. He has a letter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe so.
all three of those guys are letters, right? So they're talking. Oh yeah, they're all leaving. No, maybe they had a captain's meeting. Maybe they just wanted to go talk about something. Like there's so many things that are possible there. They're not getting traded. But I'm gonna kind of segue our way into something else here. Potential trades in the East Division, though. What are your thoughts on all the talk now about Crosby and Malkin potentially finding a home somewhere else?
For me, neither one of those guys is leaving unless they ask for it. Like they're gonna have to go to GM Ron Hextall or Brian Burke and ask for a trade. I think when Brian Burke took the job, he came in and he said, "I'm here to build around Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin," because there was a lot of speculation about them. The thing about it is that I don't think it's the most far-fetched idea. I do think that both of them right now want to stay. I think they want to be a part of the organization. And they're both low-key subtle guys that they wouldn't want to go out and ask for anything publicly. They would keep everything in house. But it wouldn't surprise me so much, especially Malkin. His wife has come out last year and basically said, I want him to be a first-line center, be on his own in the NHL. And then there was all that speculation of him maybe going to Nashville, getting to be the guy. I think for him, it doesn't seem far-fetched, but he's not going unless he asks for it, right? And Crosby's the exact same way. Sidney Crosby, okay, it's the same thing as McDavid. Like Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby. What he's done in the league has been amazing up to this point. He's got 5 Hall of Fame careers underneath his belt already. If you're trading him, I'm just trying to like fathom how that would even go down, because like he would have to go into the office and he'd be like, listen guys, it's been amazing here and I'm done. And then he would have to have multiple discussions with people over time. It's not going to be a spur of the moment thing.
And then name one team.
Yeah, and then he picks where he wants to go.
Yeah.
And we all have the assumption of where he would want to go. If you want to take over and talk about that, I'm game.
So I'm gonna put him at 2 teams, and this is not being biased. I don't even expect it to happen. I have probably 0 expectations for it to happen. But I think Montreal is the 2 destination, Colorado being the obvious one. And people read into it like the home, it was his childhood favorite team and stuff like that. I don't think that might weigh a little bit, but I just think it's a place that has pieces available for him to move and wants to move in the right direction to be able to possibly win within like the rest of his career. But when we're talking about Colorado, we talked about this over the course of the week. Again, not that we think this is going to happen, but if it is, what are you giving up? You're giving up pieces and prospects and just so much for, and someone on Twitter, I don't remember who it was, and I'm going to bash him, so I don't really need to say who it was, but was like, oh, this would be awesome to see Crosby on the wing with McKinnon. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, as we talked about, if Crosby goes there, he's, as crazy as it is, they're going to roll that 1-2 center thing, just as Pittsburgh did with Malkin, right? Yeah, they're never going to play together. Not that that matters, but you look at Colorado's prospect system, they have a lot of pieces that they'd be able to give away a couple for it. And I think that's where Crosby would want to go as well. The Malkin thing on the other hand, Rutherford kind of alluded to it since we last talked, that the reason that he wanted to, or the reason that he resigned, was he wasn't able to make deals. He kept getting vetoed, and a lot, is what I heard. So, and Malkin was a big thing because he said, I've wanted to trade Malkin for 2 years almost. And every time it kind of comes to me, I get shut down by this guy, or no, he's an untouchable. And as a GM, you kind of want to move. And I think Malkin, he hasn't said anything, as you said, pretty reserved towards the media. But I don't think he's going to lose that much sleep over getting traded. And I think as you talk about his wife wanting something, I think he kind of wants out, but where does he want to go? Like, I think he probably has a couple teams in mind, but then it's the same. It's still the same deal, right? And how much is he worth to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, the thing for him is that when I look at him, it might be the Russian thing, but I look at him and I say, he only has 2 or 3 years left before I think he wants to go home. So I think if he's getting traded, he's like, I'm going to go to a place for 2 years or so or whatever, and then I'm going home. So his value, like, I feel like he's the kind of guy that when you're going to deal him, you got to let the team talk to him about his future plans. You got to owe him that respect or owe the team that respect and say, hey, we want to discuss like a little contract extension, like how long he wants to stay here before he leaves. Because, if Crosby gives you one team, says, I want to go to Colorado, and he gets traded to Colorado, he's going to sign back in Colorado. He's not going to go sign in Minnesota after the season, right? But Malkin, I think there has to be a discussion there. The problem is when you're trading such massive pieces like these guys is they're going to want to go to a team that's competitive, right? They want to go have that last few runs. And it's so hard for those teams is the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to want back not just prospects, but players that can play for them now in the NHL. And for those teams, it's how do we find the right mix of who to give up that'll help us right now to win, but we're not sacrificing too much from our lineup or too much from the future in return. Because you look at Colorado, Nazem Kadri is a great second line center, but he's no Sidney Crosby, right? Like if you have McKinnon and Crosby, that's an insane duo, right?
He's in the trade. Like he would have to be in the trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you talk about like the untouchables that they have in Colorado would be Makar, and then Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon. I don't think any of those guys, even if you're getting Crosby in, you're not getting rid of them. Right?
Yeah, the deal, the tough thing for me is I've watched Bowen Byram. I'm liking him more and more each time I watch him. But if Crosby's going the other way, that deal starts with Bowen Byram. Yeah. Like Pittsburgh's not making that deal unless they're getting Byram. And that's the tough thing. If you're Joe Sakic, they're like, this kid is going to be a star D for a long time, and I'd want to keep him. And it's one of those things where if you trade for Crosby and you win 2 cups, you're not going to care. But if you trade for Crosby and you don't get there and you're watching Byram tear apart the league for 15 years, it's going to be tough to look back on. But that's the gamble. That's the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing at the end of the day. It's giving up a guy for potential. Well, not even potential. It's his entire career, which could be 15 years in a guy like Byram. But you're going to have to put in more pieces too. I think a guy like, well, obviously more pieces, but like they've had drafted very well, especially down the middle with, New Hook, who, right, I think would probably be in that deal. Guy from here plays at Cornell, Matt Steinberg, who coming up the prospect system, like going to Pittsburgh, that could be a part of the deal. As you know, Shane is still there. I don't think Shane gets moved, but like they have so much depth and so many, like Martin Kaut, I don't know how to pronounce his name, another guy down the middle. So they have lots of pieces that can go and they won't really get hurt by it, but it's how many of those pieces are necessary. And if you start sending away too many of them, then your prospect pool just went from A1 to C. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think it's below 50% chance that it happens. But it's fun. It's fun to talk about.
Yeah. If you want to talk low chances, would we have bet that the Florida Panthers would be one of the best teams in the NHL right now?
No,
I don't know if you've watched them, but they're playing pretty well. Like I understand last year, they probably would have made the playoffs if they had semi-competent goaltending from Sergei Bobrovsky. And he's frankly not playing that stellar this year either, but he's just playing well enough and Drieger's playing well enough. And dude, man, Aaron Ekblad is playing on that team. It's weird. I've been watching them play the last 2 nights against Tampa Bay, and they're just pushing Tampa Bay to their limits. And I'm blown away, honestly.
Well, our trend stays the same. So throughout the course of the first 4 episodes, every time we dropped a guy, pretty much, they've come up and they've shown up throughout the next week. You drop Lafreniere, he scores. Like, he hasn't done much since, but they've all done something pretty much right away after we dropped them. We talked about this after we did the last episode. We both left Aaron Ekblad off our Team Canada list, and we thought because he could definitely be there. Like, I would not, if you would have put him on your list, I wouldn't have questioned you on it. But I don't think he's there. And how he started the year, I was like, he's definitely not there. But we both leave him off the list. And now, like you said, he just looks very, very good. Like, kind of very small spurts, hasn't been long, but you're like, oh, this is kind of what we wanted him to look like. Like, if this is what he's going to look like for a long time, then we're fine with him. Like, he's going to be the face of Florida with Huberdeau and Barkov for a very long time. So it's interesting. I might have to start bashing on all the Habs from here on out, because we're the opposite.
Don't worry, I bash on them enough for you. I will say on the Florida thing, it's really weird to me. If you go back a couple months into the offseason, there was discussions about trading Barkov. There was genuine discussions that he was maybe going to go to the Rangers because they were trying to cut salary. And you look at right now, you're 2 or 3 months removed from that, and they have the most fans in the league currently. But they're just hanging in games and playing well. I'm actually just blown away by their compete level. You had the whole Yandel thing going on at the start of the year. Like, is he going to have the Ironman streak end because they're going to scratch him? And then he's been good. Like, he's Keith Yandel. He'll turn the puck over on 5-on-5, but he can play on that power play all day. But I like their team. They were fun to watch.
Let me cut in there first right quick. The one piece of that team that has been just I liked him last year, but if you look at his points, I think he had 14 points in 68 games. That Verhaeghe. Like, this guy, I had to look into him because obviously he scored 5 in his first 7 or something along those lines. So there was that automatic quick hype. But he was a leading scorer in the AHL 2 years ago. If you watched Tampa last year, you noticed him in all the playoffs. Like, he wasn't leading their team in points, but a great player. But then when you look at his AHL points, you're like, oh, he can produce. And now he comes in this year and he's just lights out. Like, he is fantastic. So if you're saying, oh, Barkov and Huberdeau aren't going to score, well, then he's getting it done for you. Like, there's so many other guys there that are just getting things done for them right now. Like, those wins against Tampa were not flukes. Beating Carolina, not a fluke. Like, they deserve to win those games.
Yeah, they're and honestly, when I look at a guy like him, I just look at Tampa and I'm like, they just draft so well. Like, everybody they touch turns to gold. Like, they'll leave their team and just go somewhere else and just be a stud. Like, their scouting department needs to have applause, and I hope they treat them fantastic in the organization for what they've done for them. But yeah, I haven't watched that guy, and he's a player, man. He's gonna be good. He's a gamer. Like, he steps up. I really like him. Do you want to move on to our U.S. Olympic team rosters?
Yeah. Let's hit it. So if you guys tuned into the last episode or on Instagram, we had it on posted on Instagram, each of our rosters for the Team Canada team. And as Jules said in the last episode, we're going to hit the Power 5 for the upcoming 2022 Olympics. So next on our list are the Americans. I think mine's not going to be as exciting, I don't think. When I looked at it, there's lots of American players in the league, and there are different ways you can go about it, but mine just kind of seems straightforward and bland, and kind of the way that the analysts might safely say they'd pick the team. But we'll give it a go. We'll see if you got anything to spark it up, and we'll see what the people like more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, when I look at this roster, it just doesn't have the depth that Canada has. There's not as much discussion. It's like there's not so many good players that are right at the same area. But might be just personal stuff, but I've left some big name players out of my lineup. I kind of had a bit of a weird lineup here, so might probably not be the roster that's going to play next year. But if I was building this team, this is what I like, and these are the guys. So it might be a little different, might be a little off the board, but I think the core guys are there. Like I think our D aren't going to be changing too much. But
Yeah, actually, we gotta touch on that first. That we had some complaints about Team Canada putting some different guys or leaving guys off. All the Leafs fans were coming at me for leaving Morgan Riley off. Just so we're clear, these are our teams, like the team that we would put on the ice, not what we're predicting to happen. Right?
yeah,
So
like Morgan Riley will be on that team next year.
Right.
I 100% think I like, but I personally, if I was picking that team, there's guys that can do what he does better, and I wouldn't need him on my roster.
Absolutely. So let's get it going. Let's start in the back or start in net.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So mine, the first two, Hellebuck and Gibson, and then I went Demko in the third. I'm not going to explain anything. You get three guys that are for sure starters in the league. I'm just going to leave it with that.
Yeah, I actually have Gibson as my number one. I think he's a stud. I know Hellebuck is coming off of Vezina, and I think he's fantastic. Like, honestly, I think this is maybe the best goaltending duo that you could formulate on a national team. But I look at Gibson, his numbers in such a terrible team. I would love to see what he could do with a good team. I have Demko as my third as well. I have so I go Gibson, Hellebuck, Demko. I wanted to leave Demko off because he has not played great this year. But then I looked at the other American goalies in the league, and there wasn't a whole lot of depth there. I thought about guys like Ottinger and stuff, but then I realized myself, like, Demko is a great goalie. He's having a tough start to the year, but he's a great goalie. He's for sure that number 3 there for me.
Yeah, the only guy I wasn't going to dive into it, but I had a little bit of a hard time, I guess, with Demko. Like he went on my list right away and I never took him off, but I thought about Jonathan Quick just for a quick little second. Especially you talk about Demko this year. I blame a lot of that on Vancouver because, I mean, they're playing shorthanded when they're 5-on-5. Like they're terrible defensively. They're not helping him out. Jonathan Quick, been there in the past. So I don't know, but I leave Demko on the list and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump into my first D pairing. So similar to my Canada last week, I think my D pairings for the top 4 are very interchangeable. I think they can go either one. I generally pick the top D pairing to have just the more offensive minded guys. I try to pick one offensive guy with one more of a two-way guy, as you'll see in these two pairings here. But my top D pairing is Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy. Quinn Hughes, I think he has 20 points in 19 games. He's over point a game or at a point a game as a defenseman right now. He might be minus 13, but he's so gifted offensively. And I think he's fantastic. And McAvoy does it all. So I love them as a pairing.
Yeah, I got Hughes and Carlson. I'm not gonna. Carlson will probably be on your number 2. I hope he is. So I go my top 4. I go Hughes, Carlson, and then I go Krug and Slavin on that one. Yeah, I mean, lots of offense there. I think Torrey Krug is. I find a lot of people like they loved him and they thought he was worth all the money in the world during free agency, and then now people are kind of like, oh, I don't know how good he is. I don't know what he is. So I still think he's a fantastic defenseman. And I think that he will, especially come next year at the Olympic stage, at the international stage, will be able to do good things. So I put him with Slavin in that second D pairing.
Yeah, so it hurt my soul to leave Torrey Krug off my roster. All right, so nobody attack me because I genuinely love him. And I still think he's playing well in St. Louis. I think he's taken a little bit of heat. I watched him play. I thought he's been fantastic. But the rest of my lineup, so I had Hughes and McAvoy in the first pairing. I had Jacob Slavin and Carlson together. I think Slavin's the most underrated defenseman in the NHL. Anybody that watches him, go. If you don't watch him, go watch him. You're going to be blown away by what the guy can do. He's amazing. My third pairing was Zach Werenski and Seth Jones. I kept those two guys together. I think they're having a tough year this year. I think it's been a struggle for them, but I genuinely think they're both top-notch D. They're my last two spots. And then my extras. So this is where I really had Krug there for a while, and I ended up taking him out because I think if they're playing on Olympic-size ice, Krug is making your team, no doubt. But they announced that the Olympics next year is going to be played on NHL-sized ice. So I ended up adding.
He won't be used to that. He doesn't play in the NHL.
Oh yeah, okay. But I had Ryan McDonough and Jeff Petrie. Jeff Petrie, obviously the year he's having, I don't think it surprised anybody him being an extra. Ryan McDonough surprises everybody a lot.
Norris.
But McDonough just plays the game the right way. He hits really hard. He was that D, that the unsung hero in Tampa Bay. He just hard-nosed, pushes guys. And I think if you look at the rest of the D that I picked on this roster, they're missing that a lot. They don't have those guys who are throwing hits and playing hard. So I had to include a guy like McDonough because you might need him to step in and be rough and tumble for a game.
Yeah, I feel like you put him in the kind of the same way you put in Doughty on the like it's around the similar. Who knows what kind of role they play, but I like it. As I said, I put Krug on mine, and then I have Werenski and McAvoy with Jones and Petrie on the back end, and in the reserve spot. I think they're interchangeable. I don't dig too deep into lines. I know you dig into the lines a lot more, trying to figure out each chemistry. I just kind of threw the roster together, more about leaving guys on and off. So pretty much the same. You're leaving Krug off, putting McDonough on. How about up front? I think we might. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of the same up here, just because those top notch guys. I'm sure the listeners are very bored by our top six because they're all going to be relatively the same for most teams. But I'm going to start off. I got Matthews in the middle of Gaudreau and Kane for this one.
Wow. So I have Gaudreau's teammates, Matthew Tkachuk on the left wing with Matthews and Kane. I think Matthews and Kane are absolute locks to be on the top line. Kane is going to wear the C. Matthews is obviously the next great American player. He's running away with the Rocket Richard. I don't think there's any surprises here with that. I'm a little surprised at Gaudreau, but I think we have a bit of difference in opinions on Gaudreau.
We don't really have. I don't love him. I loved him at BC. He was one of my favorite players when I was younger, and he was coming up. And then over the past few years, I haven't really loved him that much. But within American hockey, I still think when you go to national camp, he's going to click back in and go back into that guy. Something tells me with him, I just feel like at that stage, he still wants to be dominant, and maybe stepping away from the NHL and being able to play with these guys. I think that's where he takes a step. I dropped Tkachuk down to my third line only because I guess we'll go through that. I have, Eichel, Besser, and Connor on my second, and then Miller, Tkachuk, and Pacioretty on my third. I put Tkachuk on my third because Gaudreau's not going to be on my third line. You're not going to be able to play physical. You have JT Miller and Matt Tkachuk on your third line. That's the physicality that you need to beat a team like Canada. And then a big body with Pacioretty. He's not going to hit anyone, but he's physical. So that's a big, powerful line. I guess that's why Gaudreau he has to be up top because he can't play a physical style. So that's the explanation.
Yeah. And I like the explanation. I'm with you on it. For me, I struggled to kind of find a place for Gaudreau. I think I struggled in making my lineup, finding the physicality. I found they didn't have the same amount of players that Canada has, with guys with a lot of skill and have the bodies and will throw the hits. I had to Chuck and Matthews together on that first line because they played together with the National Development Program way back when. I was hoping maybe they'll get some chemistry back together. My second line is quite similar to yours. I have Kyle Connor on the left with Jack Eichel in the middle, but then I have Max Pacioretty on the right for that. That's my second line. Obviously, you have three guys who can score, three guys who can pass. That line just spoke to me. My third line is a bit different. I have Jake Gensel on my left side, Jack Hughes at center, and Brock Besser on the right. It's a bit of a weird line. But I think Gensel chases, he pressures hard, and he's got a scoring touch. Hughes is just a passer. He's just a playmaker, rushes the puck. And Besser is never going to battle in the corner for a puck. But if he gets the puck in the open slot, he's going to score. I don't know if you saw the play last night. I just want to give a shout out to him for a 4-on-1. He's coming in 4-on-1. Every single one of his players is opening up for a shot, and he looks them off and goes short side, bar down in the 4-on-1. That is why Brock Besser is on my Team America.
The highlight of the night.
Oh,
yeah, he's on my second line. I mean, he's definitely there. He has 10 goals now in this season already. That he's I don't want to get off topic, but he's a big reason why you're if Vancouver was going to struggle, you were like, the young guys aren't going to do very well. Besser's not going to turn into things, and Petey's not going to really produce well. They've proven themselves to be very good. So their prospect system, everything really worked out for them. The fact that they're still terrible, it blows my mind. So I guess that's the only positive Vancouver has, is at least their young guys, their prospects are still doing well. So you don't have to move them now. You don't have to get rid of them. Moving on to my fourth line, I'll hit my fourth and my extras. I put Gensel, Larkin, and Wheeler on that fourth line. I don't. I think down the middle, your hands are tied. In my opinion, they were with. I left Hughes off, but with Matthews, Eichel, Miller, and Larkin, I think that those are going to be the four centers, and those are the guys I'd take. My extras here, I took DeBrincat, who I think deserves to be there for sure, and definitely a bandwagon move for me for my 14th forward, but I'm going to take Jack Roslovic for this one. And don't get on me about like it's 10 games and he has 10 points and blah, blah, blah. When you watch this guy play, it looks like he's newborn. Like, it looks like he is just on the ODR, just loving life right now, right? And you throw him in the same name, like Clayton Keller and those kind of guys. Well, he's older. He's a year older, so he's not a super young guy. He just never really fit in Winnipeg. So he comes now and he's playing at home, and you're only judging on this year and next year. Like it's or just the start of next year. It's a very small window. So if he's really hitting his own now and continues to do that and really loves playing with Atkinson and Line A, like in Columbus, then that's what you're judging him on. So the way that I see him right now, like I don't know how I don't put him in there. Obviously, that's it could be subject to change. I love what I see, and I think he deserves the credit. I think he looks fantastic right now.
I'm not going to disagree with you that he's been fantastic. I was watching the other night. He did this between the legs drop pass to himself, walked around, beautiful play. He's playing with a guy with the most confidence I've ever seen right now. He's trying everything. He's doing everything. For me, there's a difference between just playing great like that and being a national team caliber player. Like you said, it's 10 games, 11 games. I think he's been fantastic. I think if he plays like this, he will make it. I guarantee it. But I haven't seen enough to really say that he's going to be on my team. So my left wing on my fourth line is the other Tkachuk. I have Brady. I want them both in the lineup just causing shit. And I think that those guys both being in the lineup, just rolling, they're going to bother people. So I have Tkachuk with Larkin, and my right wing. When I chose my Team Canada, I had a bunch of centers playing the wing. I like having extra centers in the lineup just in case anything happens. And I was putting together my Team USA, and I only had 4 centers there. I didn't have any 4 centers in extras. I didn't have any centers anywhere. So I picked up Vinny Trocheck, and I put him on right wing on my fourth line. Just an extra guy for faceoffs. He's good at it. Just in case anything happens, I like him being in my lineup. My extras were JT Miller and Johnny Gaudreau. Gaudreau can jump in any top 6 role if somebody goes down. Miller can jump in anywhere in your lineup if somebody goes down. I think he's played some center once upon a time, but generally he's a left wing. I mean, those are my picks. I love the Jack Roslovic pick. I love DeBrincat. I think DeBrincat could score. He's a shooter. I want Brady to Chuck in my lineup. I want him causing havoc.
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna really eat my words a little bit here because I was hoping you didn't name Brady so I could kind of avoid it. We talk about this being our team, and if I'm taking I think Gensel's a great player, but I think I take Brady Kachuk over Gensel. I just think that Gensel's definitely going to make the team. So, in picking my team, I might have done a little bit of prediction and a little bit of that, but it's already in there. It's done. So we got to leave it. Yeah. So I guess that's it. I think by looking at this, I mean, anything can happen as we've seen from the Oshie shootouts, anything can happen in these tournaments, but you compare to last week with Team Canada and I don't think it's close. Like
Not even a ballpark.
It's not even similar. Sorry to all the American listeners, but just I can enjoy fighting for silver or bronze because I that's all I think that's in there. I'm gonna knock on wood there, but yeah. What I guess that's it. We'll have to hit the Russians on the next episode. And I was gonna comment on one thing. You said that Hellebuck and Gibson would be the best tandem that you could come up with out of any international team. I think the Russians might challenge that because they have some good goaltenders back there. So, well, it'll be interesting to see next week how the comparisons work out. But we'll have both of our team rosters put up on Instagram, posted once this episode is posted. It'll be on Friday, February 19th. So be sure to leave a comment in there and see which team you like more.
Sounds good. You want to hit props and drops?
Props and drops. Yeah. So back to our weekly segment. This is a big one because this is 2 weeks, right? Like I said, our last one posted on, I think it's going to be 13 days in between posts. I guess your drop has been bad for the whole time. You get 2 weeks worth of drops in one guy. So I'm going to start off with my drop here. I'm going to go Taylor Hall. Buffalo hasn't been good, and I understand there's a lot going on there. And I think they missed a couple games, maybe cancellations against the Devils, I believe. But that's no excuse for Taylor Hall had 6 points in his first 3 games coming in, right? And you're like, oh my God, this he found it, right? He signed a 1-year deal at $8 million because he wanted to be worth more in the future, right? He scored in his first game and he hasn't scored since. I have his numbers here. He's 12 games. So he hasn't scored in 11 games. He has 9 points. So he has 3 points in his last 11 games. He's a -9 on a bad team, but you start so hot and you've done nothing since. You're playing with Jack Eichel and you're getting all those power play minutes. You don't have a goal, yet you think you're worth $10 million. 11 games. You're a drop. Taylor Hall, you're a drop.
Wow, calling him out. I completely agree. He's for me, I know everybody goes back to the Hart Trophy season. Oh my God, the Hart Trophy season. That was one of the closest Hart Trophy votes in history. And if I was voting in that, I would have not voted him as my number one. That's just gonna say that out loud. But he won the trophy. I'm fantastic for him. But for me, he's a first line winger. He's a good first line winger, or he's a high end second line winger. He's a career 60, 70 point guy with that one crazy year he had. And he still got his money this year. He still got his $8 million. But I remember we were saying that 6 points the first 3 games. I watched him in those first 3 games. I was like, this guy's off the chart right now. He's fantastic. He's playing the hardest I've seen him play. And then it just dropped off, and he looks like the Taylor Hall that we've seen the last 2 years. That just hasn't wanted it, hasn't cared, and he's just kind of waiting it out till the trade deadline so he can get dealt to a contender, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah, at this point in time, I mean, we talked about this. There's probably the first or second episode that he looked great, and as we said, props and drops are about expectations. His expectations are failed everything right now. You come in, I can't get over the wanting 10 for term. he thought he was the number one. He thought like he wanted to be the guy on a team and said, "Give me term and lots of money." But he said, "No, I'm going to get to play with Eichel. I'll take 1 year so I can get paid more after or re-signed." Now you have a guy that's just he's not doing it, and now you got to laugh and look at Skinner getting paid. Is Skinner at 8 as well? 7, 9. Skinner's at 9. So Buffalo as now Skinner at 9 and Hall with two guys that point production wise is just mediocre at best. So it's that's why teams stay bad and continue to stay bad. So what do you have for your drop?
So my drop is Dylan Strome. I actually don't like throwing flack at this guy. I think he seems like a really good guy, and I thought this year Jonathan Taves being out with, I'm not even sure his illness. I think it's still undisclosed. He's not feeling good and he's out. Kirby Dach breaking his wrist. It's okay. This is Dylan Strome is now the first line center, and he's a 3rd overall pick. It hasn't worked out for him up until now, and I thought, you know what? This is his time. He's going to make it or break it. He can walk in. He was signing a contract in the offseason. He was arguing for money, and I thought if he came in and he just had a big year as a first line center, he would get dealt somewhere and he would be a first line center in the NHL. He could finally have that. He has 8 points in 17 games right now. He had no points in his last 5 games. And he's lost the first line center position to Pia Suter, which I'm not sure if you know who Pia Suter is. He's playing great. I watched him. I love this guy. But he came over from the Swiss Elite League, I believe, this year.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at Strome, this was your year, man. This was it. Like, you just had to work hard and play well, and you'd be on that line with Patrick Kane, and you guys would be buzzing, and you'd be doing great. And he has not shown the intensity needed to play at the NHL level. And I think he still has a little bit while of people trying him out, like a Galchenyuk thing. He'll probably move to another team or two here and there. But if Pia Suter sticks in Chicago and Dach and Taves come back next season, Dylan Strome's not going to play 4th line for you. If he keeps playing like this, he's going to get shipped out of town. And I need more from him. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think it's a good drop for you because it kind of helps out my prop a little bit. The Chicago Blackhawks, my prop, by the way, is a guy with the name of Kevin Lankinen, right? The goalie right now for Chicago. We talked about Ottawa and Detroit in the first episode and said, what did we cap Detroit at? 10 wins, I think.
Less, I think.
Maybe less than 10. So that was silly. But then we came the next episode and said, I think Chicago might be worse. Chicago just continues to win games on the back of Lankinen, who's 7-2-3 right now with a 2.29 goals against average and a 9.31 save percentage. So he's played 12 career games. He's played 12 games this season. He's number one in the Calder race right now. Like there's Kaprizov has fallen off. Pia Suter, that's another guy that has a chance to be. He's up there in the Calder race right now. But this guy, 25-year-old goalie, undrafted, comes in and on a team that is arguably going to be maybe one of the worst teams in the league. And if you look at his game by game here, he shut out Detroit in his last game. He has 4 1-goal games. His first career start, he gets shelled against Florida, gave up 5. He had one other game he's given up 6, and one game he's given up 4. All the other ones are low on a team that isn't very good. How are you not going to give this guy a prop? Like a bad team in front of him. I understand those little pieces are doing well, but he's played 12 games in his career. He just came in out of nowhere. Didn't expect to have a job. Like no one was coming in saying, oh yeah, this guy's going to be the starter this year. No. So he's a definite prop for me. It's fantastic. And he just shot himself into the favorite for the Calder right now. So
yeah, I love the guy. I'm going to be honest with you. I almost gave him my props last week. I think I thought about it, but I just didn't go for him. But he steps up. I like that guy. We talked about it, obviously, like you just said, that Chicago was supposed to be bad. And losing Dach and Taves, we're like, okay, they're going to be awful. And the big thing for me was that I looked at their goalies and I was like, man, they just they don't have somebody that can stop pucks, right? Like you can't win games with somebody that can at least be a competent NHL goalie. And then out of nowhere, this guy comes out and is playing like not just a starter, but a star. He's playing fantastic. I watched him the other night. I was like, who is this guy, man? Like, where has he been hiding?
Well, how are you going to expect? Yeah, we talk about not having goalies, but you couldn't look at him and say, oh, yeah, he'll be our starter. He never played a game in the NHL before, like this year. This is 12 first career games, right? And as a 25-year-old rookie coming in, being on the worst team in the league, arguably, and being 7-2-3 in your first 12 games, like it blows my mind. We talk about I think he's doing right now what we talked about Sorokin having a chance to do.
Yeah.
Coming in and being a chance to do the Calder, except there would have been 30 rookies on my list before him. And it's fantastic. Go ahead.
The thing about him is he's doing what I wanted Strome to do in a sense, where you have the opportunity and just walking in and saying, I'm taking the opportunity, I'm getting the job done. Like, this is a guy, like, you're undrafted at 25. You're not getting any breaks. Nobody's going to give you anything. Like, who are you? And he's like, all right, I'm going to go in. I'm going to play great. And he just keeps playing great and keeps playing great and keeps playing great. And he knew that he could only stick in the NHL if he kept playing at this level. So he is. I love the guy. He's playing fantastic. My prop, we already talked about his team earlier. His team's the Florida Panthers. I picked Jonathan Huberdeau. He has 8 points in his last 5 games. Obviously, there's some guys that have higher point totals, but the things that he was doing last night, I watched him. He had a couple beautiful plays. For me, everybody always talked about Alex Barkov is the most underrated player in the NHL. Alex Barkov this, Alex Barkov that. And I was watching Huberdeau this year, and I was like, man, he's better than Barkov, at least to me. Like, I know Barkov is great two-way and everything, but man, there's a reason we had Huberdeau on our second lines last week for Team Canada. Like, the guy can play. First line, yeah. Sorry, the guy can play. He's fantastic. 8 points in 5 games. I think he has 5 goals his last 5 games. Somebody can correct me on that, but man, he's a special talent. He deserves my prop. So there you go.
Well, I was gonna say I was hoping you were gonna keep going. I was gonna fact check it, but this was, like I said, 2 weeks in between episodes. It's hard to remember when it was, but I think a couple days ago they played. It was the game 6-5 final.
Yeah.
Forget who it was against. It's terrible.
I believe it was Tampa.
Was it Tampa? Maybe.
So they're Tampa or Carolina.
Carolina. Something tells me it was Carolina, but no, I think it was Nashville because him and Forsberg both had 5 points in the game. Barkov had 2. Everyone else on Florida, the most points they had was 1. Huberdeau had 5. So you're just like, how is one guy have 5 points, one guy has 2 points? Like, normally you get them by lineman. I was like, okay, well, maybe he had a really good game and the point totals are going to even out by the end. But since then and before then, he's just been fantastic. Like, the two of them are probably some of the most underrated guys in the league.
Yeah.
We talk about, we put him on our first line, but he still doesn't get any of the credit that he deserves. It's so many other guys are going ahead because he's in Florida. Like, you're the fan.
If he was on Montreal, man, like, think of how highly he'd be touted.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's fantastic. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for this episode 5 of the One Timers podcast. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We hope that you can hit the like or subscribe in the YouTube page and check us out on Instagram, One Timers Podcast. And, you can always drop in, comment, and tell us when we're wrong. I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. We love the haters. Well, everyone, thanks to listeners. Enjoy this week, and we'll see you back here in a week's time.